I am not saying this is a bad thing. In fact, this isn't even going to be a pessimistic video. But what I wanted to do was talk about Vancouver's newest first-round prospect in the system, Adam Novotny. Because it's come to my attention, and many other Canucks fans' attention as well, that Novotny is an absolute stud, and somebody that we as fans should be paying attention to over the course of the next few years. But in this video, I didn't just want to focus on Novotny. We already did that in our draft video, talking about Novotny getting selected by the Canucks in the 24th overall spot. Instead, what I wanted to do today was talk about the last two times the Vancouver Canucks had multiple first-round selections in an NHL draft. Believe it or not, it's been over a decade. Ladies and gentlemen, the Canucks had the 3rd overall pick in this year's draft. They selected Caleb Malhotra. Then they had the 24th overall pick in this year's draft from the Quinn Hughes Minnesota Wild trade, wherein they selected Adam Novotny out of the Peterborough Petes. The thing with Novotny is that a lot of folks had him ranked a lot lower than his inevitable draft position at 24th overall. Sapp said that he had Novotny at 17, and Elite Prospects had Novotny at 14. He's a heavy sniper, 6'1", 205, he can snipe from distance, he loves to hold on to pucks, and he isn't afraid of contact. A big part of his game that has improved is his defensive commitment and his ability on D. Also, he was one away from setting the NHL Combine all-time pull-up record. He had 18, and Jack Hughes had 19. Ryan Johnson may have reversed his strike via ABS challenge. Now, Novotny has a pretty good player profile, and if you take a look at the production, that backs it up too. 65 points in 58 games, including 34 goals and 31 assists. The Elite Prospects Draft Guide says that Novotny is an A-grade prospect who has shades of Adrian Kempe. And earlier this morning, there was an article posted on Canucks Army talking about what Novotny is and just kind of the prospect profile that he presents. Top comment here says, "I've seen enough. He is literally David Pastrnak." A lot of fans seem to be excited about Novotny and Caleb Malhotra as well. If he was an A+ steal at our pick, what did other teams see to let him fall to us? Well, it's because he didn't produce well in the playoffs, which probably hurt his draft stock, and his decision-making is a weak spot. So, we will see whether or not Novotny is able to improve those elements of his game as he continues to progress. For what it's worth, the Peterborough Petes head coach made an appearance on Canucks Central after the NHL draft and gushed about Novotny, talking about how this guy has the perfect mindset, his mentality towards the game is committed, he always does what he needs to do to progress the play forward, he plays the right way, and he's got a nasty shot and point production ability. With this said, Novotny is a guy that if everything pans out, he might be a 20 to 25, 30 goal scorer in the National Hockey League. For sure, if he's being compared to Adrian Kempe, Kempe is a $10 million winger in the NHL, and a guy who was able to put up 73 points in back-to-back years. So, if Novotny can become that, I'd say that's pretty good. But in this video, I also wanted to give a bit of a history lesson here, because the last time the Vancouver Canucks had multiple first-round draft picks, you have to go all the way back to 2014. And this is how traumatized I am as a Vancouver Canucks fan. When I started watching the Canucks in 2011, it took a while before I was actually familiar with the NHL and just how things worked. Obviously, I watched the Cup run. That's when I really started getting into Canucks hockey. But over the next few years, it was really the NHL video games that allowed me to understand what happens in the league and what the draft is like and what's free agency and how everything works. I was 11, so obviously I had a lot to learn. But the first draft that I remember paying attention to was 2013, where the Vancouver Canucks had 2 first-round draft picks. They selected Bo Horvat 9th overall, and then they selected Hunter Shinkaruk 24th overall. This was a pretty big deal because Vancouver's first was 24th, Bo Horvat came with the 9th overall pick, which was taken from New Jersey in the Corey Schneider trade. This was seen as a pretty good draft class at the time, and I remember thinking to myself, wow, these guys are going to be the future of the Vancouver Canucks. Cole Castles just shut down this guy named Connor McDavid. Jordan Subban is the brother of PK. Anton Cederholm is a Canucks defenseman of the future. And none of these guys ended up playing NHL games, but Hunter Shinkaruk was the guy that I thought a lot of Canucks fans would be excited to see don the sweater and score some points. The 2014 draft class is when Vancouver also doubled down in the first round. They had their own first-round pick, 6th overall, wherein they took Jake Virtanen, and then with the Ryan Kessler trade pick from the Anaheim Ducks, the Canucks selected Jared McCann, 24th overall. So the same draft position that Adam Novotny was selected in 2026. 2014 and 2013 were the last 2 times the Canucks had multiple first-round draft picks at their disposal. 2014, they selected Jared McCann, a guy that, by all accounts, also had a pretty good run of scoring in the OHL, kind of similar numbers to Adam Novotny this time, when you really look at it. McCann inevitably became a super hot scorer in the OHL the very next season, and then made his NHL debut shortly after, scoring 18 points in 69 games, 9 goals, and 9 assists. Unfortunately, I do feel like the Canucks rushed Jared McCann. They were trying to be competitive, they were trying to force the playoffs, and it just didn't work. And because Jared McCann didn't really have the best rookie season either, you saw him get traded to Florida for Erik Goodbranson in a trade that I think a lot of Canucks fans still have not forgotten. Yes, it's true, Florida Panthers fans were bummed out to lose Goodbranson in a trade. There were some folks back in the day saying that Goodbranson was going to be the next captain of Florida. But I'd say that long-term things have really worked out for that franchise. They kept Barkov, he won 2 Stanley Cups, he's the captain now, and he's essentially the reincarnation of Patrice Bergeron. Jared McCann took some time in Florida before going over to Pittsburgh and inevitably Seattle, where he finally broke out as a 70-point player and I was going to say 30-goal guy. He only eclipsed 30 goals once in his NHL career, but in that one season he got 40. So Jared McCann definitely does have the sauce to stick around as a top 6 NHL scorer. Meanwhile, you think about the other first-round pick the Canucks had in the 20s, 2013's Hunter Shinkaruk, who was taken out of the Medicine Hat Tigers with 86 points in 64 games played. I remember the hype for Shinkaruk was off the charts. It was like, the Canucks are grabbing another top-tier scorer from the Medicine Hat Tigers. This is like Trevor Linden all over again. Now, by all accounts, it didn't seem like Shinkaruk had the same leadership-type qualities that Linden had, just from some anecdotal evidence accrued throughout the years, but also Shinkaruk didn't have the NHL talent that Linden had either. Shinkaruk stuck around in the Dub for another season before going over to Utica, a decent point producer to open up his AHL career over there. He played a game with the Vancouver Canucks in 2015-16, before getting sent over to Calgary in what was, I believe, the Marcus Granlund trade. Do I have that right? Let's take a look at this right here. Vancouver Canucks to the Calgary Flames, if the website is even still available. No, it is not. Shinkaruk trade Flames Canucks. Let's go out there and try to do that. Yeah, Marcus Granlund. That's exactly what it was. Fantastic. My memory serves me correct. Shinkaruk then played 7 games to end off that Calgary Flames stint. 3 points, 2 goals, and an assist. He then had another assist in 7 Calgary games the next season before fizzling out as a Stockton Heat, Laval Rocket, and Charlotte Checkers guy. Inevitably, Shinkaruk went over to the KHL, playing for Kunlun Red Star, Dynamo Riga. He also played for Allsvenskan and HV71. He then went over to the KHL, playing for Neftek Nizhny, and then he went over to Germany, not to mention the Cardiff Devils, this previously completed campaign. Actually, no, that was 2 seasons ago. Oh, he didn't play in 25-26. Interesting. But Hunter Shinkaruk was another one of these guys that I thought had top 6 potential. His footwork, his skills, his offensive IQ, just the skill on display in the WHL was so good for Shinkaruk, and I think a lot of Canucks fans were disappointed to see him not pan out. Jared McCann, he panned out, but just not with Vancouver. So, with that said, let's hope that Adam Novotny is able to progress properly within the Canucks organization and actually become what a Jared McCann or an Adrian Kempe was able to become with Vancouver. You can let me know your thoughts in the comment section below about Novotny, this whole history lesson on Shinkaruk and McCann. I hope you enjoyed this video, and bye.